is John Bernardin, class of 1986. And to introduce John Bernardin is retired teacher, Mr. Tom Fanning, who retired just in time for me to begin my career as a teacher at Appleton West. Mr. Fanning.
When the Hall of Fame was first created in 1998, and I began to see the quality of inductees, the accomplishments of these people, I was in awe. If you have not seen the display of the different plaques at West, you should make an effort to get there and see it and to read the description of these remarkable people in the business community and education, military, religion, science. It's remarkable that from this community and from this school, Appleton West, that these people have graduated from and gone on to remarkable lives. Tonight, I'm here to, if I can get the card here, to introduce 1986 graduate John Bernardin, who after West went on to the University of Wisconsin at Milwaukee, earned a degree in engineering and mathematics, then on to Purdue, where he received his PhD in mechanical engineering. In the work field, John was a research assistant at the University of Wisconsin in Milwaukee. He was a teaching assistant at Purdue, and he is now an adjunct professor in engineering at the University of New Mexico at Los Alamos. He has been there since 2008. He is a researcher at Los Alamos National Laboratory. He has been there since 1996. He's also president and owner of Engineering and Technology Instruction, his own company. When I began to look over the awards that John has won, again, I was in awe. I finished counting when I got to 25 or more. From the University of Wisconsin in Milwaukee, from Purdue, from NASA. He has 12 awards from Los Alamos National Laboratory. You probably all recall there were two great disasters not too many years ago. There was the Deepwater Horizon oil spill in the Gulf of Mexico in 2010, and the Fukushima nuclear laboratory that exploded in 2011, and the effects of that are still being felt from what I understand. For providing engineering assistance on that, John received an award from the Secretary of Energy of the United States government. My personal experience with John was teaching him American Studies. What I recall is a very educated and accomplished student, but I also remember, even better, a very fine young man. That same feeling was expressed by his wrestling coach, Fred Wiesberg, when he was questioned about John. He had the same thing to say about John's quality as a young man. For all of these accomplishments, John himself attributes his accomplishments to first of all, his parents, Leo and Joan Bernardin. Joan is here tonight, a very proud mother, justifiably. He also attributes his accomplishments to the Word of God. And I was very happy to see that he also attributes his accomplishments to the education he received at Appleton West High School. Just before I came up here, I learned a story about John very quickly. When he was quite young, one of his principals at an elementary school had this to say about John. John, you will either end up someday in jail or in the Hall of Fame. Well, that principal was right. Dr. John Bernardin in the Hall of Fame.
I don't remember that story, but that instant, but it's probably true. I really want to thank everyone for this opportunity, especially my family, my mother and father, of course, and my brothers and sisters, and all my educators that brought me along during this time. There's no single person that I can say that that contributed solely to my success. It was a contribution by so many people. And as Tom also indicated, I give thanks to God for the wonderful gifts that I've had and opportunities. When I was at Purdue University, Purdue was loaded with learned men in my field of engineering. And a funny little side note here, there was a technician that ran the machine shop. And I befriended him, and he helped me learn how to cut metal in different forms and how to shape things and how to piece together all the equipment I was going to need for all my research. English man, he wasn't highly educated. Tremendous things, and I never forgot that. And advice I think I got from an individual in my life. It was a very short sentence he said to me when I finished up at Purdue and I was going off my PhD to try to change the world. He said, "John, don't ever forget where you came from." And I haven't. And that's really important. That sentence, "Don't ever forget where you came from," is always with me. And I'll come back to that shortly. What were my ambitions in 1984 to 86? I took this time, as I was telling Tom tonight, we really go through life thinking about what tomorrow's going to bring. What am I going to do today? What's my forecast for the future? What do I need to get done? And I've been like that a lot of my life. And I'm reaching a point in my life where I'm beginning to look back because it's been a long path. I know I don't look as old as I am, but I'm 54 years old, and I've been on one hell of a journey. And this award has caused me to pause and reflect. And I have to say, in the last year and a half, thinking back, it's been an eye-opening experience for me. I thought back to high school and I was like, what was I like in those years? What was I thinking about? What did I want to be? And I began reflecting who my friends were, who my teachers were, what were the things that I wanted to do. And I can tell you there were three things that stuck out as I was recollecting this. I wanted to be a professional bike racer. It was a hobby of mine, something I did in the summertime with a couple of high school friends. That was one of my ambitions. The other was to be an engineer. My parents had always instilled education in me. I was the youngest of four kids. My oldest brother was studying physics and was a physicist when I was in high school. And so I knew I had been in advanced math since the second grade, and I knew that I was just drawn into science and engineering, and that's where my passion was. And I didn't quite understand where that was going to take me, but that was part of my ambition. And then I wanted to travel the world. Well, how was I going to make all these? How were all these things going to come to fruition? Here I am sitting in a high school class, probably thinking about these things, but also being distracted by what's the latest trends, what's the coolest music, who are the cutest girls in the class, all the things that were part of the reality of when I was in high school. Anyway, a lot has changed since then. pursued my education. I thought back, a lot of things have changed since then. My vision isn't quite as good. My hearing is not as good. I'm not as fast on a bike anymore as I used to be. But so many things have changed for the positive. I have a wonderful career. Tom talked about some of the things I was fortunate enough to contribute to, and hopefully have made the world a better place. I also took the time to think back. I opened my yearbook. I have all my Appleton West yearbooks saved. It was a very treasured point in my life, and I still retain those. I know a lot of people throw things out, but I still have my yearbooks, and I went through them. And certainly, I appreciate all the teachers that I had, but there were a few that stood out. It was mostly my senior year as I really began to shape things and decide on my future. And I just want to mention a few things that these instructors had brought to me. And the reason I do this is because our entire lives are the result of contributions from others that have taught us, shown us the way, maybe shown us things that we shouldn't do, learn from their mistakes. And it was Albert Einstein that said, 100 times a day, I remind myself that my inner and outer lives are shaped by the labors of other men, living and dead. Of course, he meant men and women in the statement there, but it's a very profound statement that such an accomplished genius would give credit not to teachers only, but to everybody that was hundreds of people involved in their lives. And so I'm thinking back, my God, all the people that have contributed to making up John Bernardin and what I've been able to experience in life, there's a long list. And I can't possibly thank all of them tonight, but I can give a few examples, and I'd like to do that. To Donna Clementi, she was my French teacher. Well, I spent 4 years working on an instrument. It's termed the ChemCam instrument. It's on 2 of the Mars rovers right now. On the surface of Mars, it's zapping rocks with a high-powered laser. And from that, it emits light. And from that light, we can tell what the rocks are made of. Extremely powerful instrument, gives the NASA team a chance to look at targets before the rover goes over and explores them in greater detail, but it tells us what the planet was made of, what maybe what its geological past had been, what are the opportunities that life could have existed on Mars. I had the chance to work on that, and I traveled to France half dozen times to collaborate with a team of scientists and engineers, and I used my French to communicate to them. And I have to tell you, there was a period of time, I don't remember all the details. George Bush was president, and I remember one thing, that we were to call French fries freedom fries. Some of you might remember the history there. And here I am over there in France, and I'm trying to communicate to these colleagues, and I said, I love French fries. And they'll always be French fries. And they got it. And what it meant is that we're all on this journey together, and we're going to work together. And it was a powerful, powerful experience to work with people a third of the world away, and to contribute on something that was so incredible and such a contribution to science and engineering. I've traveled the world, and I've learned to speak bits and pieces of other foreign languages, and it was all the things that I learned in class, and I'm so grateful for Donna. She had written in my senior yearbook in French, and I'll say it in English, but she said, I hope one day you get a chance to ride your bike in France. That was a dream of mine, and because of the education I got at Appleton West, and because I could speak French, when I went over there, I took my bicycle. And I rode to the top of several mountains in the Pyrenees, which separate France and Spain, and I had the opportunity to watch the Tour de France. And as an amateur bike racer, I spent 12 years racing. It was just a dream come true to be able to sit on the top of the Col de Peyresourde and to watch these racers come by. It absolutely blew my mind. So thank you, Donna. To Tom, I I was recollecting a few stories to him tonight, the things I remember in his class, but history, it gave me such an appreciation of accomplishments of what other men have and women have done in this world, and how we should learn from those and carry those forward. Because in order to advance, we really need to understand our history. And I told Tom, while history is not necessarily a focal point in my professional career, it's my hobby. And I eat up history wherever I travel and visit museums and old sites and things like that. And so thank you, Tom. Joanna Eklund taught physics. And I remember building a toothpick bridge. It was to support a heavy brick load. And you were to make the lightest bridge possible to hold up this heavy brick. And to span, it had to span about a foot, and then they put a brick on top. And the lightest bridge would win the contest. And I remember going to the library and researching how to build bridges. And that was my introduction to engineering. And I fell in love with it. And I can't explain it, but there I was spending hours and hours. And of course, my friends are like, "What are you studying?" I'm like, "I'm learning how to build a toothpick bridge." And you can imagine, as a kid in high school, it's not a real popular thing. And I didn't win. I finished second. And the kid that won, his dad was an engineer. Taught him how to build the bridge. So I don't know what's the best way in life to get strict instruction from those that know what they're doing, or study it on your own. But nevertheless, wonderful inspiration. James Happel taught statistics and calculus. I understand James is here tonight. So calculus and statistics, it's the language of engineering and science. I didn't appreciate it back at Appleton West. I was like, why am I studying this math? I can tell you I appreciate it now. And I really understood what it meant to integrate and differentiate equations and to do algebra. And all of these things became commonplace to me as an engineer. And so I thank you for teaching me that. And, I know most kids struggle with mathematics. I enjoyed it so much. I didn't understand why, but as I became an engineer, it became apparent. That was our language. Mary Beth Neenhaus is being brought in tonight. She taught physical education while I was there. And I've spent my lifetime participating in athletics and, of course, watching what I eat. My mother grew up on a dairy farm, and we had gardens, and so I was constantly looking after my physical well-being, and it's a pillar in my life, and I thank you. For Fred Reesberg, he was my drafting teacher and wrestling coach. Drafting, of course, it's the drawing techniques that engineers use to describe things that we're creating, and I fell in love with it. And as a wrestling coach, he taught me stamina, strength, toughness. That would serve me well as an amateur bike racer as I competed against some of the national champions and professionals here in the United States in the Rocky Mountains, climbing mountains with these guys side by side. They were eking out a living, and I was doing it as a hobby. And I could do so because I had the education, and I knew that if I failed in the bike race, I always had my engineering to fall back on to feed me. I have to say, though, tonight it's a very humbling experience. I looked at the list of people that are in the Hall of Fame, and I really don't think I'm worthy to be on up here talking and accepting this award. This is incredible, the accomplishments of these other people. And in reflecting, I realized it's not how I see my accomplishments. That's not what's important about this award. It's how the committee and those around me see my contributions. And that was eye-opening to me, to realize we go through life trying to do things to make the world a better place, whether it's to our families, our neighborhoods, our communities. Always let that be your guide. learn from the people around you, learn to do the right things. You don't have to be an engineer or a scientist to achieve great things. As Einstein said, hundreds of people have contributed to his success. This can be the people that deliver the newspaper in the morning, bring you the news, the person that serves you coffee at a coffee shop. It can be the doctor that stitches you back together. There are all kinds of people that lead to a successful life. And you have the opportunity to carry that forward and to do good. And so I'm starting to reflect now. Did I better society? Is the world a better place because John Bernardin lived in it and participated in it? Am I a role model for others? Do they see my accomplishments and my behaviors and the things that I do as something they want to emulate? Is it something good? Did I use the talents and the gifts and the education that I received, or did I waste them? These are all the things I've been thinking about as part of this award. I can say with absolute certainty I've done my best with what I've been given. I've lived every moment, I've cherished it, and I am so grateful and thankful. And if what I have achieved in life is worthy of recognition, I humbly accept that. And I'm very, very grateful. But I'll also say this isn't the last chapter of my life. And I hope it's not. I hope there's a lot of other opportunities for me to contribute and give back. And I find that as I get older, it's less about where I'm headed versus looking back and saying, what can I contribute to my fellow man? What can I give of myself to feed back to the community, to bring others along? So I hope that I can honor this award with other accomplishments that you will deem worthy of such recognition for this award. So I have to say I will cherish this award tremendously, and most of all because it comes from you, my hometown, and what my friend Jim said that I mentioned at the beginning. Don't forget where you came from, and I haven't, and I'm so grateful for the Appleton West community and for Appleton to think about me and to consider my accomplishments worthy of such recognition. I thank you.
Congratulations, Dr. John Bernardin. John, I know Fred really wanted to be able to be here tonight to speak to you. He came down ill, and somehow I can picture Fred at some point in time as you were struggling through learning a move saying, it's not rocket science. But then again, sometimes it is. So. All right, now we have two requirements for induction into the Hall of Fame. First, the individual must be out of school a minimum of 20 years, and I'm glad, John, that you cleared that up for us, that you are indeed 20 years out. My wife commented that even though I'm younger than you, I look much older. Thank you, honey. All right, and second, they must have shown evidence of outstanding civic achievement and or outstanding post-high school academic or professional accomplishment. Our second inductee tonight is Catherine Ebert-Gray, class of 1973, who will be introduced by a member of our selection committee, Kay Martin, Appleton West High School class of 1964.
Good evening, everyone. I am privileged to introduce Catherine Ebert-Gray For the last year and a half, almost 2 years, I've been in contact with parts of her family, and I would like to thank them for coming tonight, her parents from Denver and some of her relatives from Madison. Thank you very much and welcome to Appleton. The selection process is very involved. We have a few, not arguments, but stressing the importance of selecting these people. I've been on the committee since Terry and I served on our 50th reunion committee since 2014. So it's been a long process, but every time we have the induction, it's a proud moment for me. So Catherine graduated, as Mark said, in 1973. She has been the ambassador, U.S. ambassador to Papua New Guinea, and recently came back to the United States and is the director of global education at the University of Colorado, Denver campus. So I would like to take this opportunity to welcome Catherine to the podium and thank you for attending this evening.
Okay, it's just been a delight to get to know you, and I hope that this is the start of a lifelong friendship. Thank you so much for your help. You know, my family and I are just delighted to be back in Appleton, and I say that so sincerely. This town to us is quintessential mid-America, and driving around today just reminded us how true that really is. We've been looking forward to having a whole week here, visiting with family members who are still living here, and of course, seeing so much more of the forward state. The last time we were here on vacation was in 2010, and my daughter was 11 and my son was 16, and we have so many great memories that they were excited to come back, especially of Wisconsin hospitality. On that trip, we drove straight from the airport in Milwaukee up to Appleton, and of course we had to drive by my old house on Eugene Street over on the other side of town. And as we got down the street, we noticed there was a for sale sign in front of the house. So my daughter had this great idea that we were going to buy that house because so many of our friends in Washington who don't work for the government had bought their second homes at ski resorts or lakes. She was convinced that they were going to come to Appleton. And you know, maybe she was on to something because I see since I lived here, you guys have made this one of the best cities in America. You've made many lists. Well, then we went on to Tomahawk because my other cousin lives up in Tomahawk. And as we unpacked the car, she told us everything we're going to do in Tomahawk. She had kayaks and hikes and everything was planned out for us. See why we love Wisconsin? When she got all done, my daughter said, well, could we go down to one of those streets where you park your car and you walk down and you walk inside a store and then you come back out and you walk down some more and you go into another store. She'd never been downtown before. And so we did it, and it was a wonderful reminder of College Avenue at Christmas. You can all relate to that, I bet. So my son Tom is here too, and he was 16 at the time, and even today, coming to Wisconsin is all about the Badgers, Bucks, and Packers, right? Yeah. So we made it up to Lambeau Field, and we had our tour there, and we're so excited that next week we have tickets to the game. It's a lifelong dream. It's been on his bucket list, my husband's, to go see a game. So if anyone's tailgating, let us know how to find you. We'll bring the beer. We're looking forward to that. It was really quite good. So we're honored to be here. Before I move on with just a short message, I have to say a few words of thanks. You know, it was so humbling to be called Kay and to be considered by the committee, Mark, Stephanie, everyone who made this happen, because from my perspective, I can relate to John. We just did what we thought was right. And when the government decided that they were going to go into Afghanistan and I was asked to reopen the embassy, of course, like all of you, I was going to step up. This is just part of our soul, part of our heart here in northern Wisconsin, that we're going to be there when people need us. So I feel like I just was doing my job as a public servant, but it was humbling to be considered, and I'm very grateful to be here with all of you. I also want to thank my brother Fred and his wife Mary Lee for making so much of this happen and for coming out to join me tonight. It means so much to me. Trina, Heidi, Peggy, all of you coming out. And I'm incredibly proud to have my parents here who are 94. Yeah. My father's from East Troy. He was a businessman here in Wisconsin for many, many, many years, and he was a guard on the UW Whitewater football team back in the day. Yeah. And my mom, she was president of the Christian Women's Club here in Appleton, and she was a realtor. So it's been fun coming back with them to see all of this. And their third generation Wisconsin roots, I think, has done me well. So thank you, Mom and Dad. My greatest thanks has to go to the special people who have been on my diplomatic journey with me. My husband, Ian, my daughter, Clara, and my son, Tom. We packed and unpacked and packed and unpacked and traveled to places that you have never heard of around the world. And we built great resilience because we went through hurricanes and security threats and learned new languages, started at new schools, and it wasn't always easy for them. But now we all look back with great appreciation for the journey, right, kids? Yeah. And I have to say, it has been quite a journey. Reason why I have two kind of things I want to talk about. First was, I had this idea that I was going to bring you up to date on American foreign policy and kind of go through the alphabet of nations, starting with Afghanistan, because I spent so much time there. But my husband waved me off that idea because he only gave me 5 minutes. So we'll have to do that afterwards. Just meet me outside, okay? But there is something that's been very heavy on my mind. And I have to commend Appleton High School for all they do in global studies. But one of my observations as an ambassador overseas is that we need to do more to prepare our children to step out. We need to do more to magnify the efforts that are going on. Because from my view of the world, being overseas most of my career, there's a compelling need for us to have a greater presence and for our children to be part of the global economy. Other countries are doing a much, much better job. Now, I've met some of you tonight that are out there, and I'm really pleased to see that we're making our contribution. But sitting as the ambassador for 4 years, representing the US in 3 countries, I had a lot of American companies come to call on me. But the leader was never an American. The head of Exxon was an Australian. The head of Coca-Cola was from Bangladesh. The head of the biggest NGO was a Kiwi. And other countries are filling these positions overseas because we're not out there. We are far, far outnumbered. Even in diplomatic circles now, China has more embassies overseas than the United States. Here's another example. I served on 4 school boards overseas. American educators used to be prevalent around the world at American schools and international schools. But today they're stepping back. They're not out there anymore. And yet these are the schools that expats and leaders of communities are sending their children to because of the inquiry-based education, because of the great careers that they're being able to forge, because of the American culture. But the education positions are being filled by Canadians and Australians and people from the UK because we're shrinking in education overseas. And this is something I would like to talk to any teachers that are here about if you want to go overseas. And you know, in some countries, they're even specializing in exporting labor. Think about the Philippines. They are educating medical personnel to American standards. They are the predominant labor in seafaring industry. And of course, you can see them in the hospitality industry anywhere. According to Dr. Limacher, who's a German communication consultant, Americans make up less than 3% of the world's expatriates. The nations that get the most incoming remittances, which means the nations that have the most expats, you guessed it, China, Philippines, and Mexico. In fact, there was a study a few years ago by the McKinsey Global Institute, and they found that 40% of the job growth in advanced markets is going to foreign labor because they have the languages, they have the intercultural competency, and they have the global lens that we lack. Now, some might argue that Americans are too expensive to employ overseas, or that we won't accept the risk of going overseas, or that we have enough jobs at home. But I really want to argue that we need to make a greater effort of entering the global workforce. Having a presence overseas increases our understanding of the world and reduces conflict. It opens access to markets. It influences UN voting and agendas. It allows us to help people directly in their own country. It promotes innovation and it retains our competitive advantage. After all, according to every report, 92% of the world's consumers, the world's students, the world's tourists, the world's clients, shoppers, patients, are outside of our own borders. We need to understand and to continue to attract those consumers in those markets. We need employees who are effective working with diverse teams for diverse markets. And overseas companies want American labor because of our exceptional higher education and our knowledge of our own market. So how can we build on what we're currently doing to prepare children to be global citizens? I just have 4 little ideas. One is, we have 55 languages among the students going to the Appleton School District. We should be adding new languages to our world languages. We should be adding Mandarin or Hindu or Arabic. Wouldn't it be cool to have students who know Arabic? According to the US Census Bureau, only 20% of Americans know a second language, but 56% of Europeans speak a second language, and over half of the world are at least bilingual. People appreciate it when we try to speak in their language, even if we're not fluent. German schools require 2 languages before you graduate from high school. So that's one area I'd like to see us look at. The second one is to jumpstart student interest in joining the global economy by expanding study abroad. We do study abroad here in Appleton, but it's mostly the people in the language programs. But study abroad is a powerful way to get students interested in global jobs and the whole global economy. In fact, Dr. Carrie Olson wrote her 2016 PhD thesis saying, travel education should be extended to middle school students as well. Several studies have shown that when students study abroad, they're more likely to graduate from college with higher grades and have a higher earning potential. So that would be an easy way for us to really increase interest in the global economy. The value of study abroad is also being recognized with more and more scholarships, and there's even programs where people can donate miles to help defray the cost of transportation. Third, I would like to encourage you to continue to have more foreign speakers and build bridges between communities. There's a wonderful program called the Stevens Initiative that's named after my colleague, Chris Stevens, who lost his life in Benghazi, which gives grants to schools to set up exchange programs with people in the Middle East. And by the way, did you know there's more American ambassadors killed in the line of duty than generals? Because that's our job, to be out there. Finally, other schools are actually making it a requirement that students have a global perspective by having a menu or a point system, that they get points for taking study abroad or working on a career job fair or working with refugees, and they gain points, and then they get a medallion at graduation or a cord for having that international perspective. Just a creative way for us to increase interest in getting students out into the global economy. Because even just taking a couple of these measures will seriously enrich the lives and the careers of students. And imagine how it could help to reduce racism in America. Working on a college campus today, I see that the next generation is absolutely ready. Students are far more focused on major world issues and social justice and self-sustainable practices. They embrace diversity. The resulting confidence and career openings and respect for cultures and desire to embrace differences would become the greatest gift that we could give to our children and to our nation. So that's my message. Thank you again for this great honor to be with you tonight and a wonderful evening. And thank you again, Kay, and everyone else. Thank you.
Congratulations, Ambassador Ebert-Gray. If you doubt her passion about educating the world, after I got done giving my plug for the Lamers Family Launch Studio, she said, "You got to get me in a Zoom." And speaking of Zoom, I think all of us know what a Zoom is. When 2 years ago, we would have had no idea that that name brand would become a generic term for teleconferencing. So congratulations again. Thank you for your passion and for your words. Our next inductee, Terry Maves, from the class of 1964, will be introduced by Hall of Fame member Denny Lamers, class of 1966.
Okay, first of all, congratulations to Dr. John and to Catherine. I should say that. And by the way, I still own an engineering firm and we could use a bridge designer. And I'm really not kidding, but I don't know if I can afford you. That's the problem. It's a little bit funny, I think, because I think when Terry first heard about this, he thought he was going to get it for some athletic endeavor. Gus, where are you? You know what I'm talking about, right? Okay. Well, it's not. Yeah. I've known Terry and Mary for how long? A long time. And they've been together for a long time. But anyway, the first thing I want to say is about Terry is that he was a pretty sick boy, a year ago, right? Ventilator, the whole thing. He was very sick boy, and we're just lucky to have him here, I'd say. So I feel pretty good about it. Terry's actual name is Terry Carroll Maves with a K. He wanted to make sure I said that, not a C. I don't know. What's the difference, right? Anyway, Terry graduated from Appleton High School in 1964, 2 years ahead of me. Yeah, 66. Wow, long time ago. Graduated from UW as a pharmacist in 1969. I should get serious about what he's done in his life. And to be honest with you, I got a lot of stuff here, but I'm not going to read it all. That's okay, isn't it? Yeah. But as a pharmacist, as a pharmacy director for the award-winning Touchpoint Healthcare Plan at United Healthcare of Wisconsin, Terry collaborated with pharmacists, physicians, clinics, quality control specialists, employers, employees, pharmaceutical companies, state legislators, and consumers. A lot of things. I've got some stuff here to say, and I'll keep it short. And it's not all in the right order, but anyway, his innovative programs improved healthcare outcomes and saved millions of dollars for consumers and employers alike. Terry served as president and chairman of the board of the Pharmacy Society of Wisconsin, was appointed by the governor to the Pharmacy Examining Board, and was Innovative Pharmacist of the Year in the year 2000. I didn't know hardly any of this stuff. I've known the guy my whole life, and he's so modest, I didn't even know him. In 2014, colleagues honored Terry, with the Board of Hygeia Award. I don't know what's in a bowl of Hygeia, but it's that award, excuse me, is the pharmacy profession's highest honor. I mean, it's a national award. Pretty good stuff. Unbelievable. In 2011, Terry was recognized as one of 9 graduates of the University of Wisconsin, my school, who have made a difference in the Fox Cities communities. And that is richly deserved, because he's been at every level of the community, and has been for a long time. He's lived his entire life here. Terry has also been a long-standing leader of the church as president of the congregation, co-chair of the 100th anniversary, and a record 5-term council member. He was chairman of the board of the Fox Cities Community Health Center, and still is, I think. No, see, I practice this, right? Which provides critical resources to the underserved of the entire community. He was for a long time. He contributed to the innovation of high school education through his work with the Appleton School District Career Academy. Still on that? Yeah. That was a yes and a no. He retired. That was his brother that just mentioned that. As chairman of the class of 1964 reunions, Terry had a dream to raise money for their 50th reunion, resulting in more than $25,000 given to scholarships and student assistance to several 2014 Appleton West graduates. I think I'm going to take that idea and run with it. It was a great idea. He did a great job. Terry has numerous local, state, and national awards for his outstanding work in the healthcare industry. Too many to mention, although they're all right here, and I can send you a copy if you need it. I mean, there's a lot of them. Anyway, what year did you get married? 1970. Okay. That's a long time. 51 years, right? Okay. Anyway, Terry and Mary have been married, and they had 5 kids and raised them all. He did a lot of raised a lot of foster kids, helped out a lot of families, did things that nobody else would have ever thought about doing, just because he's that kind of guy. And so is Mary. Okay, I'm just going to keep this close and short. Well, first of all, Terry had a very, very successful life in business and all kinds of ventures, okay? But what I really liked about him is he is a great man, father, and friend. And I'm so glad that you joined me in this Hall of Fame. I can't tell you. The only thing I have a problem with him is, though, look at all the hair he's got. I've always had a problem with that. I don't know what it is. So anyway, I'd like to introduce Terry Maves. Oh, well, I think we got a plaque or something.
Oh, that's after.
Oh,
Haven't you been paying attention?
oh, no. I
Okay,
mean,
before we start, I just want to say a couple things about where we started. Denny mentioned that we were together for a long time. Denny lived at our house back in the late 60s, 1967. And he walked up, came down the hall one morning. It was a January morning, very cold, snowing. And he said to me, "Do you have a jacket I could wear?" And I said, "You know, Denny, the only jacket I have is the one I have on." I said, "I do have this little spring white jacket with a plastic hood in it and some blue patches, a sailing jacket." He said, "I'll take it. Could you do one more thing for me?" He said, "Could you give me a ride out to Highway 10 and 41? Because I have to hitchhike up to Stevens Point to take my finals." So I gave him a ride out there. And I looked in my rearview mirror as we drove away, and there he was with his Appleton High School football bag and his books and a clipboard, no gloves, and that little blue hood, plastic hood pulled over his head, hitchhiking to Stevens Point. That's where the two of us started.
Yeah.
So, all right, thank you. The second thing I'd like to tell you, and Denny mentioned a little bit, was my son Gus, who's a teacher at Appleton North and a head baseball coach, got a call from the principal one day, and he said, "Gus," he says, "Do you know what Terry Maves? Is that relation to you?" And Gus said, "Yeah." He says, "That's my dad." Hi, Sally. He said, "Why?" He said, "Well, he got elected to the Appleton High School Hall of Fame." And Gus said, "Are you sure?" He said, "I'm pretty sure he just ran JV track." So the expectations were pretty low here to start out. I want to take a couple minutes, kind of like John did, to mention a couple people that are here tonight. I was fortunate enough to be elected president of the State Pharmacy Association, and at my address to the Pharmacy Society, they allowed us to thank some people that were important in our life of getting there. And sitting in the front row was my preceptor and mentor, Mylan Sinclair, who owned Appleton Pharmacy. At the time that I was working at Appleton Pharmacy, there was a pharmacist, there was a daytime clerk, there was a person who ran the postal station, there was a nighttime clerk, and 2 delivery boys. Today, that pharmacist stands in front of you as an inductee into the Appleton High School Hall of Fame. The daytime clerk was Donna Eckes, who became the Pharmacy Technician of the Year and President of the State Pharmacy Technician Association. The person who ran the postal station was Sue Tukas, who graduated in my wife's class. Sue went on to work for Disney World and ended up being the person who was the executive director of the HR department when Euro Disney opened in Paris. The nighttime clerk was, the nighttime person is here tonight. Could she please stand up? That's right, it was Kathy Cipher, who ascended to the highest position that a woman could easily clap. One of the delivery boys is the internal medicine doctor in Minocqua. The other delivery boy is an oncologist in San Diego. Did Mylan know how to hire him? 5 of the 6 of those people were graduates of Appleton High School. The class of '64, when Kay was introduced to her, you go, "Yay!" Because it was a great class. 556 great people. The first group out of the war, 1946, we were born. And that class had some special people in it. One of those was Dr. Martin Rosenblum, who's not here anymore. But Marty was a classmate of mine at Edison School. In fact, Marty started my social life in my life because that was the first birthday party I was invited to drop clothespins in the bottle from your nose down. Of course, back in those days, your nose was much closer to the ground. Another thing that happened that was really bad in 8th grade was my mom and dad sold their house in West Prospect, and we moved to East Glendale, which meant I had to leave Wilson Junior High and go to the dastardly Roosevelt across town. One of the first people I met there was Rollie Stevenson, a member of the Hall of Fame here. Rollie and I walked to school. Little did we know someday we'd be here. 556 great people. I couldn't invite them all tonight, although many asked to come. But I did invite one special person. And you've watched him tonight go in and out of here several times. Rodney Sternhagen. Rodney is the bravest, funniest, most inspiring person that I know in our class. He's been battling cancer since 2014 with a phenomenal attitude. Rodney, stand up. Rodney isn't going to be in the Hall of Fame, but he is a great example of a great person in this life. I wanted to talk a little bit about where I started and where I went in my pharmacy career. Not so much to tell you what I did, but more or less to tell you that I never left town. In 1960, roughly, I was at Roosevelt, and my social studies teacher, Mr. Gamsky, who was in the farthest room on the first floor by Drew Street, came in one day and said, "You have to write a 7-page paper on what you want to be." Oh, geez, 7 pages. So I went home and I said to my dad, "What are some good things to be?" And he listed doctor, lawyer, minister, pharmacist, car salesman, teacher, lots of things. So I went to in those days, the internet, which was at our house, and was called the World Book Encyclopedia. And the most things were on pharmacy. So it'll fill up 7 pages. I picked pharmacy. That's how I started. And I had to interview someone who did the profession. So I went down and talked to Mylan Sinclair and Morris Gabert at 508 West College, Appleton Pharmacy. Well, they not only did the interview, but they also sent me down to Madison as a freshman to a junior-senior career fair. Well, I was hooked. Jump ahead several years, my phone rang one day at Ogg Hall, and it was Mylan. "Can you come to work for us as an intern this summer?" Yeah, I had a lot of questions, and finally, the big question, how much? $2 an hour. Geez, Mylan, I'm making $2.37 an hour picking rubbish and garbage for the city of Appleton. That's my best job ever, by the way. All right, we'll give you $2 1/4. We'll let you work Thanksgiving, Christmas, and Easter to make up for it. That career lasted, at Appleton Pharmacy lasted 11 years. Along the way, Donna Eckes, who had a brother that worked for a new company that was starting up in Green Bay named Shopko. And her brother was a sporting goods buyer and said, "They're going to open a pharmacy at 1000 West Northland. You should go up and find out about it." So I went up at 9 o'clock, talked to a man named John Schwartzy. At 11 o'clock, he threw his credit card at me and said, "Here, take this back to Appleton. Spend as much as you want. I want you to meet the pharmacist that's going to be in charge. I want you to be second in charge." I turned it down. A year or so later, I blew up my knee playing basketball, which was a life-changing experience. walked through Shopko on my crutches, and they said, we need a third pharmacist. So I went there. Stayed there 4 years. On a Sunday night at 8:20, the phone rang, and it was John Schwartz. He said, when do you work in Appleton tomorrow? I said, 1 to 9. He said, meet me in Menasha at 8:15, you're the manager. I stayed there 11 years, 12 years. In 1987, some doctors in Appleton had an idea to start something called an HMO. Dr. John Milky. Do you know Dr. John?
Once or twice.
Sally and I have been on a few boards together. So. Dr. John Milky, Dr. John Toussaint, Dr. John Barkmeyer, Ian Grunin. And they hired a man from John Deere in Iowa. And he called me up and said, I got your name. Craig Allen was his name. That was nice that he came to town because his son was Dan Allen, who was the starting center in the Appleton's basketball team. And some of you may remember that, went to state. Anyway, he said, I got your name to negotiate a fee for the pharmacists of the area for this new managed care organization. So I met him at the Paper Valley. We negotiated the fee. And he said, would you like to be on a pharmacy and therapeutics committee? What is that? But I got on it, stayed on there for several years. And by 1996, I had become the consultant for a health plan in town called Touchpoint Health Plan. And I was working 60 hours at Shopko. So I flipped jobs, 30 hours there, 60 hours there. We had 5 kids. We had adopted 2, playing ball 3 nights a week. By the way, Gus, I did do more than just run JV track. Anyway, ended up being the pharmacy director at Touchpoint Health Plan. Touchpoint Health Plan became the #1 health plan in this country in 2002, 2003, and 2004. I'm proud to say that because I don't know that a lot of people in this community know that the best healthcare in this country, from a quality standpoint, was in Appleton, Wisconsin. United Healthcare, of the big United Healthcare, came in and bought us, and I went on to United Healthcare. Jay Fulkerson, who is the CEO, said, you're going with me to be the pharmacy director for United Healthcare. And I had just started putting together a company called Navitus, which is out on Highway 41. Navitus is now has over 7 million lives, employs more than 1,000 people across the country, most of those in Wisconsin, and over 600 in Appleton. Now, the reason I walked through all that was to tell you that I never had a resume. I never applied for a job. I just kept going wherever it took me. So never leaving Appleton. Where did I get the information, the ability, the knowledge to do that? And just like John said, it was the teachers. Miss Falk in 2nd grade, Mrs. Timmers in 3rd grade, Miss Freilich in 4th grade, Miss Van Ryzen, Miss Malman at Wilson, Ron Knorr, Mr. Spanbauer, Irma Reamer, Carl Inger, John Belanger. You know some of these names, you guys? Yeah. At Roosevelt, Merlin Fine, Mr. Lee, the principal, Mr. Gamsky, the guy that said write the paper, as we refer to her, Bob Betcher, the algebra teacher. Just met her daughter the other day. Mr. Bowker in science, Rolly Winters. At the high school. Oh, at Wilson, I can't forget Mr. Raymer, Raymer, who lived across the street. Great teacher. At the high school, Gus Ediger, Mr. Witzke, Mr. Farrell, Charlie Scribner, my French teacher, Madame Miller, who sent 23 of us to France for 6 weeks after we graduated. A great experience. A. Dillon, whose daughter is watching tonight, Alice Dillon, good friends of ours. Anyway, I wanted to name them, and all the others, as John said, most of them, almost all of them will never be in the Hall of Fame, but they build people who are in the Hall of Fame. That's the great thing. I was blessed and honored to be the chairman of the class of '64 reunion committee. 10, the 20, the 25, the 30, the 35, the 40, the 45, and the 50. At the 40th, Jenny alluded that I thought if I could get 100 of our classmates to give $25 a year for the next 10 years, we could raise $25,000 and give the graduates of 2014 scholarships. We raised $27,000. I called the high school and I said, could I speak to the principal? Very nice lady answered, but she was a little short with me because I think she probably gets a lot of calls like, can I speak to the principal? She said, what do you want? I said, I'd like to give him $27,000. Oh, yes, sir, we'll talk to him. He'll be right here. So I met Greg Arches, a tremendous person. We gave away 8 $2,000 scholarships to those attending a 4-year and 8 $1,000 scholarships to those attending a 2-year trade school or tech. Greg said to me, you know, Terry, he said, nobody ever thinks of those people. Thank you for doing that. I gave Greg the extra $3,000. He bought Clarions for kids that couldn't afford them. He sent some orchestra or band or some kids to a seminar down in Chicago. He bought a pair of tennis shoes for a kid on the basketball team that couldn't afford them. And he had a young man who was from a single parent family in Chicago, had chipped tooth. People bullied him and made fun of him. So we took the money and fixed his tooth. I went through the journey of my pharmacy, but the actual journey that mattered started back when I was a little kid. Sunday school, junior choir, Luther League, and all the time, I didn't know it at the time, there was a young lady who was in Sunday school, junior choir, and Luther League. And she thought I was funny. So finally one day I asked her on the church steps, would you like to go on a date? And we did, right? Went to the Real Theater, marked Big Boy for a Hot Fudge Sunday every single day. I had no imagination. So she went out for a while, we didn't go together, but on November 2nd, 1963, at 10:45 at the Mem in Menasha, she came up to me, second last was a girl's choice and the last was a boy's choice. She asked me and I asked her, we went home, and we've been together since that time. Somewhere along the line in 1980, mid-80s, late 80s, we were invited to Phil and Alice Strong, Alice is, again, Abe Dillon's daughter, Alice Dillon, to a Christmas party. And we met a lady there who was a social worker. Mary and I had seen in our church bulletin a offer, or a plea, I guess it was, to take in runaway kids for Allegheny County. So we called up and we volunteered our home to take in runaway kids. Over a 3-year period, we had 7 of them. It was good for my kids because they were always bitching about life on Allen Street. They found out things weren't so bad after all when the runaways came in. At the Christmas party, that social worker said, "How do you like doing that?" We said, "It's good. We feel good with paying back the community." 3 weeks later, she shows up at our doorstep with a 14-month-old and a 4-year-old, Peter and Susie. Peter came charging through the door with a red puppet, and he says, "Hi, I'm Peter. I'm going to live here." Peter didn't know how to count to 3. He didn't know red, green, yellow. He didn't know how to walk up steps. 30 years later, he competed in the World Championships of the Ironman in Hawaii. Susie walked in the door at 14 months. Today, she's completed her doctorate at the University of Minnesota. She's not here tonight. She's going to have a baby any minute. Completed her doctorate at University of Minnesota, has a PhD now and teaches at Montana State Criminology. And she has a little girl who has been battling cancer since she was 4 months old. But she's 3 and doing really well. The oldest, Tyler, who's back, I don't know, why don't you guys stand up when I say your name, then Tyler stand up. Peter first. No, don't applaud. I guess really big. Don't applaud. The oldest, Tyler, runs a program out in Vermont, started in Montana, University of Montana, for at-risk kids. Wilderness education changes the world for kids. Kyle? JR is in Cedar Rapids as a teacher for I say tough kids, but
Special education.
I'm sorry?
Special
Yeah,
education.
special education, but tough kids. JR's got the ability to take on tough kids. And Gus, who's turned into like the favorite teacher out at Appleton North, FIAD and head baseball coach. Through all of that, through the whole trip, Mary and I have had a really good time. A few bumps in the road, but a really good time. On my plaque, I started out by saying, that's my COVID brain kicking in. What's his name? It's a Wonderful Life.
It's a wonderful life.
Huh? George Bailey never left Bedford Falls. Likewise, Terry Maves never left Appleton, Wisconsin. So here we are at the end. And I can say now that in spite of the fact that Gus called up one day and said, "Are you sure?" I'm pretty sure he only ran high school track. The next thing he said was, "Congratulations, Dad. That's forever." It truly has been a wonderful life. Thank you for this honor.
Get a picture. So congratulations, Terry. And prior to this process, I really didn't know anything about Terry Maves, but I knew a kid named Gus Maves. Sorry, Gus, I'm calling you a kid, comparatively speaking. And I think when we talk about legacy, Denny mentioned it, being a good man, a good spouse, a good father is really it. And if I knew nothing more about Terry Maves than, and I don't know all your kids, but I know Gus, and the type of kids you raised, that says it all. So congratulations. All right, so our bylaws not only allow for alumni to be inducted into our Hall of Fame, but also for educators. And tonight, I'm proud to say that we have our very first educator to be inducted into the Hall of Fame, Mary Beth Neenhaus. And to introduce Mary Beth is Claudine Happel, a member of our selection committee and also a longtime library media specialist at West. And if you haven't heard of the Happels before, you know through the Happel Sports Complex, through other donations, that she is a tremendous supporter of all things West. So Claudine's going to introduce Mary Beth.
Thank you, Mark. I feel honored and humbled to have the opportunity to introduce such a unique and amazing individual. One could say that she needs little or no introduction, since the majority of you already know or know of Mary Beth, albeit perhaps in a variety of contexts. But that would not do her justice, nor would just a laundry list of her myriad accomplishments, awards, and contributions. Deciding what to include and focus on was a daunting and an enlightening task. Mary Beth was one of the first educator coaches that I met when I came to Appleton West in 1974. I was a JV girls basketball coach, which was then early in her storied basketball career. Then and now, I knew her as MB, and she then and still calls me Beanie. We have been colleagues and friends for 47 years, but our friendship and bond has strengthened and grown significantly during the past 2 decades. Let me start with a brief MB background. She was born and grew up in Appleton. In 1965, she graduated from Marquette University with majors in physical education and mathematics. And bet most of you are not aware that she has a degree in math. Mary Beth was the first female varsity student athlete in Marquette history. Joining the men's golf team, she was the first woman to compete on an intercollegiate team and the first woman to represent Marquette in the National Intercollegiate Tournament. MB was a teacher coach for 33 years, first at Kaukauna High School, then at Illinois State University, where she earned her master's degree, and at Appleton West from 1971 to 1999. She coached many sports, including varsity golf for 25 years, varsity basketball for 10 years, volleyball, gymnastics, as well as served as cheerleader advisor. As golf coach, she and her teams won 10 Fox Valley Association Conference championships, had 4 state tournament championships, and 4 state individual medalists. While varsity basketball coach, she and her teams won 5 FVA conference championships, had 3 state tournament appearances, including the initial WIA State Girls Basketball Tournament in 1976. In volleyball, her team was a conference champion and had 2 WIA State Tournament appearances. While teaching at West, she taught thousands of students the joys and challenges of the game of golf. Many credit her with creating their love of golf as a lifetime sport. Mary Beth's amateur golf career began in the early 1960s when she was a Northeastern Wisconsin junior and then adult champion, as well as a Wisconsin State amateur champion. During her Ladies Professional Golf Association career, which began in 1971, she became a Master Professional, was National Coach of the Year, Midwest Professional of the Year, and became a Master Life Professional. She is the only high school coach to be named LPGA Coach of the Year. In 2011, she received the Marquette University Department of Intercollegiate Athletics Distinguished Alumna of the Year Award. She is a member of 5 Halls of Fame for her many accomplishments. Tonight, she is being inducted into the Appleton West Hall of Fame for her contributions, involvement, and support of a multitude of causes and initiatives in the Appleton community and Greater Fox Valley. Philanthropist. Mary Beth is the definition and epitome of that term. She has given her time, physical involvement, and significant financial contributions and/or matching gifts to a myriad of not-for-profit groups in the Fox Valley. A few of these more than 20 groups include Appleton Historical Society, Fox Valley Humane Society, Habitat for Humanity, or Neenhaus Square, where she has been heavily involved in the actual physical builds, Happel Athletic Complex, Harbor House, Loaves and Fishes, Marigold Mile, Neenhaus Field, Riverview Gardens, St. Elizabeth Hospital, Thompson Center on Lourdes, and the YMCA's of Appleton and Greenville. She also supports several Catholic parishes as well as parochial high school scholarships. She has participated in many mission trips throughout the world, including 15 third world countries and 25 throughout the United States. Mary Beth is an active member and former president of the Appleton Noon Lions Club. She has been president of a number of professional associations as part of her career as a physical educator and serves on the boards of directors or board of trustees of a variety of organizations in the area. Most recently, she contributed $500,000 to the Appleton Parks and Rec Department for pickleball courts at Tallulah Park, continuing her legacy and love of lifetime sports and physical activity. Mary Beth was part owner of Winnegamie Golf Course from 1972 to 1992 and was full owner from late 1992 to 2014. After giving the golf course to the Appleton Education Foundation in 2015, MB was, in a sense, reborn. She became a voracious reader, including becoming an active member of our retired educators book club, although it doesn't really matter if you read the book. For us, we talk about so many social, educational, political issues more than the book itself. She also became an accomplished cook, baker, gardener, crafter, all activities that she didn't have time for to enjoy. Guided by her strong Catholic faith, she enjoys working and playing with those who have similar attitudes and lifestyle. She is fearless and willing to try anything. Let me close with these 4 words: teacher, coach, philanthropist, friend. Here is a woman who embodies the essence of each of these to their fullest extent. It is my sincere pleasure to present Mary Beth Neenhaus.
Many thanks. Thanks for introducing me this evening and also for our wonderful friendship. And I must say that I don't think that baking cookies and zucchini bread qualifies me for an accomplished baker. So congratulations to all of tonight's Hall of Fame recipients and to the past Hall of Fame inductees. Thank you to the Hall of Fame committee members for selecting me for this great honor. I am very appreciative and humbled by this induction. When I was contemplating what I was going to say this evening, I thought this would be a great opportunity for me to thank people who have influenced my life in countless ways over the years. And from all the other people here tonight, they tell stories, so I am going to be sharing some stories too. I've lived a blessed life. Certainly my parents, Sylvester and Mabel Neenhaus, played an enormous role in my life. They shared their strong work ethics with me while allowing me to be adventuresome. I was clearly a tomboy. I loved all sports. I was the one in the neighborhood that had a basketball hoop on my garage. I pitched softballs to my dad, and I played tackle football with the boys in the neighborhood. And finally, my mother said to me I should probably play something more ladylike. So then I concentrated more on golf. I have great memories of my cousins going to Little Chute and playing baseball. And then my other cousins being at their Mead Street farm. And I want to thank all of my relatives for coming this evening. Through my 28 years of coaching and teaching career at West, I was blessed with a number of principals who supported the physical education program and our girls sports program. And Emmett Hawks was my first principal when I was hired in 1971. That summer, I got a call from Mr. Hawks, and he mentioned to me that there was a gymnastics position open, and wanted to know if I wanted to accept that position. And I mentioned to him that I wasn't really too interested. So imagine my surprise when I became the gymnastics coach. A few weeks later, Mr. Hawks called me again, and he mentioned that there was a cheerleading advisor position open, and I clearly said that I wasn't interested in that. So I became the cheerleading advisor. And very honestly, I had my heart set on coaching basketball and volleyball. And then my next principal was Bob Simon, and I really like Bob a lot because he was very supportive. He never mentioned that I had to take or coach any sports that I wasn't too excited about. And during my time at Appleton West, I had two athletic directors, Paul Engen and Ed Zepka. We were also teaching in the physical education area. Paul and Ed probably are holding their breath right now, wondering what I'm going to share about them. But relax, guys, it's all good. I will share this, though. There was a time that all the people on our faculty had to take a personality test, and it was referred to as DISC, D-I-S-C. And I think we took it to determine how we would be functioning together in our departments. So we had head coaches, John Kading, Bruce Erickson, and Kathy Wagner also in our department. And when we got the test results, we found out that we were all Ds, which meant dominating personalities. So we had an interesting time teaching together. And I was blessed with faculty friends who taught me the importance of supporting and nurturing our students. And one person that's here this evening, Elaine Dinklage, she was head of the math department. She helped a lot with our girls sports program. And then Claudine Happel and Pam Reitzner, who are here. They were the junior varsity basketball coaches, and I always thank them because they made me look good at the varsity level. And then I would be remiss if I would not be sharing a little bit about Title IX. Title IX was really a breakthrough for the girls' sports program. During that summer of 1972, I attended a basketball and volleyball clinic at River Falls. My instructor was Dr. Millie Barnes, and she just happened to be on the Title IX committee. And when she shared with us about the wonderful opportunities that now girls would have to have equal opportunities with the boys' sports program, I could hardly wait to go back to Appleton West and share that with Mr. Hawks and Mr. Engen. So changes had to be made. And during that time, I became the girls' basketball coach. I was so excited by this opportunity, but very honestly, I had no basketball coaching experience at all. Dick Emanuel was a great mentor, and I badgered Dick with lots of questions. I went to his practices, and I took lots of notes with his drills and plays. And I particularly remember one game that I was coaching at Appleton West. Dick always came to our games. He, along with my parents, always sat up in the balcony. Dick won the state basketball tournament in 1970 with a last-second shot, a play that he shared with me. So our game was tied with 7 seconds left to go in the game. So I called timeout. I brought the kids over in the huddle and I shared Dickie Manuel's last second play. Well, Lisa Johnner made the winning shot at the buzzer. I immediately looked up into the balcony and there's Dick with a smile on his face and a thumbs up. That was a special moment. My greatest joy at Abilene Westall was teaching and coaching the talented and dedicated student athletes. And I'd like to acknowledge a few tonight. And I was sitting with Julie Hammer. She is a most interesting young lady, but she's famous for her last second shot at regionals that propelled us into the state tournament. Chris Gerhold, who also was on the team, she made the first basket and she was our leading scorer. And then 2 excellent golfers that I coached were Sue Ginter and Ellen Melke, Sally's daughter. And they both were state medalists and they led their teams to state championships. So I thank all of my students for the warm memories that they gave me over the years. And after my teaching and coaching and professional golf career, I began another chapter in my life, and Beanie mentioned a few things that I've been doing. My mission trips was really another way for me to share my talents and Christian values with other missionary friends. Sharon Piat and Julie Vargas here tonight. We made several life-changing trips to Haiti and the Dominican Republic, and leaving me with a passion to serve others. Currently, I do volunteer and I do financially support some of the not-for-profit organizations here in our valley. I believe strongly in honesty, hard work, dedication, Christian values, and giving back to my community. And along the way, I hope that I've instilled in others some of these same qualities. And before I go to bed each night, I thank God for all the blessings and friendships. And if it is true that you are shaped by the people you hang out with, then it is clear that I am blessed with impactful friends. And each morning I wake up wondering what projects God has in store for me. In addition to God's work, I always have a motto. Some of you know it. But every day for the rest of my life, I want to do something new and different that I've never done before. And I want to put a smile on people's faces. And hopefully I've accomplished that today. Thanks again for this wonderful recognition and an opportunity to share my story. Not bad for a freckle-faced tomboy from the south side of Appleton.
I can hardly wait to get my plaque. I don't know what that looks like.
It's a good likeness. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So we have a history club at Appleton West High School, and believe it or not, there are kids that love history so much, they formed a club. And last year, or the year before, I think it was, we brought Mary Beth and some others in to talk about Title IX and the impact that it had in blazing a trail for women's sports and women's athletics. And this year, thanks in large part to the work of, forgive me, Claudine, but of Beanie, and our athletic department, we will be taking a night where we compete against Appleton North in basketball to celebrate 50 years of girls athletics. So thank you for blazing a trail, Mary Beth. Again, congratulations to all of our Hall of Fame inductees tonight. Please, before you leave tonight, meet this guy in orange, Ed Zepka, one of the founders of our Hall of Fame group. back in the corner, and we want to get a picture of the four of you for posterity. And so as we close our ceremony this evening, I want to take a moment to thank the members of our selection committee, Paul Hoffman, Steve Seifert, Terry Gross, Kay Martin, Claudine Happel, Ed Zepka, Bob Simon, and Walter Rugland. If we could give them a hand, please. I would be remiss in this day and age when restaurants are closing due to lack of staffing, not to thank the great staff here at Pullman's for all of that hard work. It's important work. We need these types of people, and we need areas where we can come together and celebrate. So if we could give Pullman's a round of applause. I also really need to thank my secretary, Stephanie Kozlowski. Stephanie takes care of all of these details with some help from other people, but she worked tirelessly to get this done. And really, this is her first complete year as my secretary in a normal school year. And it's anything but a normal school year. So Stephanie, incidentally, is also an alumnus of West, class of 2008. So Stephanie, please. Go ahead, stand up, Stephanie. So one final time, I want to thank all of our inductees, past and present, for their service. The history of excellence you represent as alumni of what is now Appleton West is inspiring. At Appleton West, our students learn about our history, the history of our building, and the history of individuals who've passed through our hallways. Our new inductees are an integral part of this history. Thank you, everyone, and have a great evening.